What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 6th album by rapper Fat Joe. Basically this project is called All or Nothing and it came out in the late spring of 2005. So the thing about this particular project is just the fact that Fat Joe had a number of things going on throughout the late 2004, early 2005 era as far as those pitches can happen. Particularly a hit album that I reviewed recently, which he had a hit album around that time which I reviewed recently, which was the Terror Squad album from 2004, which got Fat Joe his first #1 with the hit song Laying Back, some pretty good type fare. Also helped to introduce Remy Ma into more commercial spotlight as far as those pitches can happen. But the thing about that particular project was just the fact that it did actually have another single that came out after Laying Back, which is a pretty good bop on there. I forget the particular name of that one, but it was just a good pitch to kind of, just to say the follow-up single to the Terror Squad album, Take Me Home, was a nice one as well. Just continue that mixtape soul that like folks like Lil Wayne and Joel Santana and Jeezy, some of those type folks were kind of doing in the mid 2000s. Some good type pitches, getting some of that type fare. So I definitely feel like that particular album was like a mild kind of spin off of like Jay-Z's The Blueprint album as far as those fairs can happen. But this particular album finds Fat Joe, this particular album by Fat Joe, All or Nothing, finds Fat Joe cresting off of the hit potential that he had throughout like the mid 2000s as far as those fairs can happen. Just seeing what he would do following up the Lean Back success and some of those type fairs. For the most part, it delivers pretty damn well. Now I'm going to give this album like a virtual classic score, just really all but on the hair of being a cusp of like a full-blown classic. I realize it's relative within certain pitches just because for the most part this album did have some good singles on it within the pitch, but it didn't have a #1 as full-blown. But it's still, this is a pretty damn solid album in terms of commercial appeal. Fat Joe would always get at least a couple hits off of his albums. Get It Poppin' was the largest one that was like a top 10 single, and then So Much More was like a top 85 single that did pretty solid. It's pretty good pitch. That's definitely one of Fat Joe's best songs in my opinion, I'd have to say. But I just look after the appeal behind this particular product is just the fact that this was kind of his commercial widespread type appeal, getting to that more of that type of spotlight after having like the success of a #1 single, and then just being able to see could he do that more often, become more of like a household name. Even though it kind of keeps him in like gold selling type territory. I want to say this album at least went gold or something like that, but look within the pitch as far as saying that the appeal behind this album probably overstates, like, let's say the appeal behind this album flattens like the concept of like the commercial delivery behind it, just because albums are kind of falling apart more oftenly in like the mid 2000s as more downloads and more things like that started to happen just within the pitch behind it. But this is an album that does have the quality on it within the concept. It just doesn't have consistent #1 after #1, because I feel like in certain senses I would definitely say Fat Joe's like a miniature version like the Notorious B.I.G., where he would kind of have like those typical kind of he would have those typical kind of mob East Coast type anthems that Biggie would kind of get, and folks like Big Pun and Biggie, some of those type fairs just within the pitch, just a continuation of those particular folks that would do that in like the late 90s, early 2000s as far as those fairs going to happen. It's just the aspect, kind of melding some of that with like the blossoming kind of southern bounce of like things like the mid 2000s, like Lil Wayne and Jeezy, some of those type folks. So it's a pretty commercial album being able to do it, but it's just kind of within the tone that, you know, Fat Joe just, for some reason, Fat Joe is just not able to get like multi-platinum type albums like some of the folks like 50 Cent, Biggie, you know, folks like that, Lil Wayne, folks like that in particular. But it is good, and it's just kind of constant, just more that the commercial side of things and the more critic aspect of it just doesn't have as much heraldment compared to like the actual quality of this music. So it's this kind of thing. But it is good to say here, like I said, it has some good features on here. On top of that, Eminem is on here in his prime era from the Encore era. Jennifer Lopez is on here. R. Kelly is on here, pretty good pitch. Nelly has a pretty good cameo and feature on here, some good beats like Scott Storch, who did the Lean Back beat. DJ Khaled has a pretty good beat on here. Cool and Dre has some nice ones. There's just some good type pitches. Lil Jon has a nice beat. It's been the appeal, so it's pretty contemporary to like the mid 2000s as far as those fairs can happen. This definitely feels like a vanilla kind of 2000s album within the pitch behind it, but it does it within the aspect of being an East Coast album, despite the fact that the East Coast was kind of flagging someone like, for the most part, in terms of sales aspects in like the mid 2000s, but it nails it just being able to do it, because Fat Joe's one of the ones that always had like particular pop and East Coast albums, despite, you know, the wars that kind of went on between ringtone rap and lyricists as far as those pitches can happen. But it nailed it. So it has the casual gems on here, but this is kind of the concept that this is kind of within the pitch of just the usual kind of controversy and this determining what folks would kind of think in terms of like the flair behind it, just because he wasn't a household name. But he kind of wasn't. So it's just in the pitch. So just being able to say, so this is the concept about this album. There were 2 singles, one of which was like a top 85 single. That was So Much More, and then the song that probably anchored this album that got him the closest thing back to his Lean Back type territory in 2004 was Get It Poppin'. But basically, So Much More is like a litty kind of manic shredding kind of turn ups. So Much More is like a litty kind of manic shredding kind of turn up song, kind of get within within those pitches here. Just very vicious type production as far as those pitches can happen. Just a grand sequel and pitch to like lean back. I would definitely say here, if you're looking for another song, if you thoroughly enjoy like the hit song Lean Back, some of those type fares, I definitely say pretty much like one of the closest things in terms of something you probably need to listen to, even if it's not like a commercial kind of fried disc bona fide smash. It's still what I'd say. It's a top 85 single, but it's definitely in terms like the tone and the aspect of the same fierceness that song has. I definitely say I would definitely say So Much More is pretty much that song. It's like a dance highlight, I would definitely say here, and it's a pretty overall dope song kind of get within those pitches. So just romantic type 1. It's real nice, vicious, kind of Cool and Dre type beat to kind of get here. It's a good aspect kind of have some of these folks. Cool and Dre was definitely a pretty good Rick Ross producer, and folks like that, DJ Khaled out, and some of those type fares, definitely a good Miami Fried type producer. So it's definitely good that Fat Joe managed to snag some of these type folks and have some of those contemporary type sounds, like times good type pitches for that. Get It Poppin' was the second single, and this has Nelly on the hook, pretty good feature, kind of get him in his like prime era as far as those particular fares gonna happen. Fat Joe's pretty good at doing that. He also got Lil Wayne for like Make It Rain in like 2006, so he was good at finding these folks as far as getting them in like their prime and then just throwing them on the hook or something like that, just being able to get like something to make like a nice kind of bopping kind of to make like a nice kind of bopping kind of singles for those pitch can happen. So this was like a top 10 single, definitely had things torn up throughout the spring and summer of 2005 as far as those pitch can happen. Was the closest thing to getting like a sequel in terms of commercial flair to like Lean Back, but it's just a little bit more vanilla and commercial. It's a little bit more pop rap ready, but this like a vintage kind of 2000s commercial dance smash kind of get here. Just a second, this song is kind of secondary nowadays, not one you would commonly hear as much compared to songs like probably like you know when you think of Candy Shop by 50 Cent or like Just Lose It by Eminem, some of those type of ones, or like A Milli by Lil Wayne or Lollipop by Lil Wayne, just classic kind of 2000s anthems, some of those type pitches. What You Know by T.I., some of those type pitches, but it is pretty good gem and appeal to some aspects behind it. Gets things jumping pretty well, and it's just an overall nice one to kind of get within those aspects. So just real good type tune, good type bop within those aspects. It's real nice tune to kind of get here. Just typical kind of bounces within the aspect behind it. It's basically this basic kind of commercial kind of vanilla groove as far as those appeals kind of have with it. Just good type tone, just dance stepper, just easy kind of highlight to kind of have. Just basic kind of torque song for ladies as far as those pitch kind of having just in the pitch behind it. So Much More is a little bit more vicious. That's probably the one that I would go with the most snarl on here, especially in terms of single format. But this one's just a little bit more wave making in terms of more recognizable. I'd say it's Get It Poppin', so it's a good type pitch. But yeah, so basically out of the 16 songs in this album, I wound up at least recommending 13 full blown and then 2 almost songs as far as those pitch can happen. So you would think 15 out of 16 would be like a 10 out of 10, but the fact that I kind of feel like 13 out of 16 would virtually be like a 10 out of 10 as well. I'm just kind of within the aspect of it pretty much virtually being like a 9.75 just within the pitch. I feel like, you know, whether or not this is right on that cusp of being kind of within the concept where most of this album is pretty vicious within the classic type of appeal behind it, but I feel like these 2 almost songs I look after, I would fuck with these songs within a relative sense, but some of the ladies songs that Fat Joe kind of did on here are a little bit more saccharine than like the full-blown concept what was probably, I mean, these are just really sugary, satiny within the pitch as far as that particular one goes. Just not so much Fat Joe out of his element, but just kind of ones that just are a little bit more kind of just real kind of like sugar cookie like as far as the particular pitch, kind of a little bit more sugar cookie like as far as the particular pitch kind of goes along with this. So it's just a fair, just really kind of like really dealing with like a Barbie doll kind of aspect of really dealing with like a Barbie doll type girl as far as this pitch can happen, just the aspect as far as the tone. It's not to say like that in a foul or derogatory type sense, but just kind of the concept of just realizing that you do have a little bit more delicacy with it. So it's just kind of the tone. It's the aspect as far as saying, you know, obviously, you know, for rougher type aspects, it just doesn't have as much embellish. So it's just, these are really kind of like when we say pop rap, this is kind of something that LL Cool J would kind of be. These are sorts of ones that just feels like something that even LL Cool J would kind of be thought. I mean, these are just virtually, I don't want to say like they are PG type territory within the pitch as far as some of these type ones, because they're not within the tone as far as like the lyricism behind it, but it's just kind of the aspect, the production fare of some of these are just a little bit more embellished within the tone. But it's just, so talk about Listen Baby, it's like an embellished kind of East Coast jingle to kind of get here, just a syrupy kind of Pink Skies dredge within some of those aspects and like the verses that I had to say here, and it's like a taste of the fine things as far as those pitch kind of having good bop to kind of get. So I like this particular song with Mashonda as far as those pitch kind of happen. I do like the overall ambience of this song. I feel like the song I Can Do You just nails that particular vibe a little bit better. It's the same sort of Miami Fried, just Pink Skies kind of ness to just be able to get like some, it's the same sort of Miami Fried kind of Pink Skies kind of ness to be able to get with some of, Listen Baby has some of the Miami Fried kind of Pink Skies kind of ness to be able to get with some of that, just the basic kind of cruise around within some of those relative, it's a relative cruise around to be able to get within some of those type senses. But I look after it, it's just the main problem with that particular song, Listen Baby, is just the chorus as far as those pairs can happen. It's just a little bit clumsy in the way it kind of delivers upon it. Listen Baby just almost feels gospel-like or almost churchy within a relative type sense, but just didn't have as much full-bound appeal. But it's just kind of the pitch behind it. So it is a nice one. I do like the verse aspect of these. I do like the verses aspect of this particular song. But it's just kind of one where it's just a little bit scratchy within the tone, like the delivery, how it particularly went along with it. But I do feel like I Can Do use this a lot better than Hold You Down. This is a song that was also on Jennifer Lopez's 2005 album, as far as those pairs can happen. This is the second single, but this one didn't hit as heavily as like Get Right did from early 2005, the lead single off that album. I feel like listening to it here is just kind of within the pitch. It's like a plushy and kind of satiny, kind of hands full evening settle in to kind of get within some of those type tones. Just sweet as pie, kind of usual wind down fare. I'd have to say about this one, good song to gab to. I just look after it, just is really kind of satiny just in the pitch. I mean, obviously for the concept, just the pitch of just having like really kind of just like saccharine type moments where the pitch kind of go like I was saying, sugar cookie type fare, just the real kind of sugar sweet type aspect. Just really some sugar in that lemonade as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's just within the tone. You just have to understand the concept as far as that particular one goes. But for the most part, it pretty much, I don't want to say it's like something, it just kind of makes you not necessarily feel queasy, but it just kind of tone that you just are really kind of like, it's not something that's going to make you feel queasy, but it just is really kind of like, in just the aspect, just a clingy kind of aspect within this particular song. Just, it's not to say like it's the actual connotation behind the song is clingy. It's just the aspect as far as saying that it's just a little bit more super sugary within the pitch. So it's just the aspect behind it. It goes for what it is. Not to complain about that within the tone. Obviously, within the pitch behind it, has the fare behind it. It's a good type bop, but this is a concept. It's not a song that you would pull off as much just within the aspect if you're not dealing with the cling of it as far as those pitch can happen. So it's just within the tone. But I just look within the aspect as far as those fares can happen. So that's just the pitch. But every other song on here I recommend. So this album gets to 9.75 just to say within the pitch. I feel like I was saying, it's just right on the tinge as far as saying that it would be a virtual classic here just within the aspect, but just kind of the tone, just be able to say within some of those aspects. I mean, it's just within the art. I mean, this is one of Fat Joe's best albums. I'll definitely have to say it's up there with. Nowadays, I'd probably say I'd say I probably like Me, Myself, and I a lot better, despite the fact I gave that album like a 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10, something like that in 2024. And I gave like the 2008 album, and I gave the 2008 album Elephant in the Room like a 9 point something out of 10. That's a definite pretty excellent type one as well. But this is up there. This is definitely like a real composed and just the overall aspect of type Fat Joe, that he just covers a lot of bases. Definitely brings some of that DJ drama mixtape soul. Has some good sugary type songs. Has some good aspects for like some club hitters. Lots of good club gems on here. Good budget. Lots of good producers. Good aspects of a lot of these particular moments. So you'd think just the concept, it just really just boils down to like just splitting hairs as far as saying whether or not you would say it's a 10 out of 10 or should be like a 9.75. It's just within the pitch. I mean, either way you look after it, you could say 10 out of 10, but it just is the concept as far as saying that it deals with the relative aspects of the oftenness of just listening to those two extra, those Listen Baby and Hold You Down, as far as those pitches kind of happen just with them being almost songs. I feel like they are good songs within a sense, but they just have like a asterisk kind of quality behind them with just the consistency or just like the relative frequency of just listening to them. So it's just, you get the idea, but I just feel kind of within the up in there is 9.75 or 10, but we'll say 10, but this is the concept that if you're not vibing with some of like the more kind of just satiny type moments, it just would be a 9.75, but I look after it. So the only song I don't recommend on here is just Safe to Say, The Incredible, which this one I just didn't like the overall bravado type. Safe to say I just didn't appreciate as much the pounding kind of bravado type fare. This particular one was just one, like I feel like Beat Novocaine just nailed it a little bit better within the pitches behind it. This is just one that kind of felt like decent kind of city hop type one, but just the aspect behind it was just not as, like, this is like a worse version of some of the stuff that Fat Joe was kind of doing on Me, Myself, and I. It's the same sort of royalistic type fare. I like the kind of royal, kind of composed type nature of some of this blue blood type fare within it, but this was just one, didn't have as much within the degree of it as far as this pitch can happen. But basically, so yeah, this album gets a light 10 out of 10 just in the pitch. So just to talk about some of these on here, like I'd say Rocky Body's like a real excellent type one. It's like one of the most vicious ones to go for after So Much More. I definitely would say it's like a rocky kind of night venue pounder kind of get here. Club staple, definitely. I feel like this one feels like a single that definitely probably could have been. This would have been a nice choice to follow up the album a little bit further. Routine Night of Crazy. This definitely be like a Routine Night of Crazy. I had to say, and this song just has hella slap about it just in the pitch behind. So it's just a real nice one. real vicious type appeal. There's some dance rock, some real nice dance, shaky ass type bounce as far as that particular pitch kind of happens. Just good, nice ferociousness kind of get within some of those type tones. Good type appeals. Temptation Part 2 is probably one of my more favorite songs in this particular album. This has a real glitzy type one. I thought this was produced by DJ Khaled, but it's actually by a cat named LV. Not sure as to who that is, but this is like a similar kind of paranoia vibes, like some mafioso kind of Biggie Life After Death type fare as far as those pitch can happen. This real nice piercing type one. This is like some quick nights. I definitely feel like you're quick living. I definitely have to say just out in the thick of it as far as those pitch gonna happen. So definitely like some good winter brush as far as those pitch gonna happen. Just a good type tone of just like that social vibe of just big city living, just in a more frenetic type pace. Do like the paranoia of this in particular, good type tone for that. Temptation Part 1's a pretty blitzing one as well. And then this one's like a more blue blood and elegant type commerce kind of get here. City weaving definitely I would feel like this gives 90s Biggie vibes once again. This like some tasty grime to kind of get within those aspects. So it's just a good nice one. Temptation Part 1 just feels like something that like Mobb Deep would kind of do, or Nas on like a differential kind of more dramatic type day just than pitch behind. It's really kind of the East Coast kind of grime that just nails that appeal real well. It's a real nice elegant type one kind of get within some of that tone. Do like the enriched and kind of blue blood factor this one. There's some DJ drama kind of soul type songs on here. Songs like Does Anybody Know and Intro, some of these type ones, but Intro's like a contemplative kind of neighborhood mixtape soul kind of get. Definitely similar to like 2000s Don Cannon vibes, just like Lil Wayne and Joel Santana. I'd have to say it's pretty good hit song kind of get within those pitches. So it's just nice type fare, just same sort of pitch, same sort of 2000s mixtape type flair within those particular pitches behind it. It's a good type concept of like some of that DJ drama typeness kind of get in there. So some good aspects for some of that. Just like Me, Myself, and I from 2006, and also the aspects of like the Carter 2 type vibes, dedication, some of those type vibes. If you like that particular sound, just some of that amalgamated type pack some of that amalgamated type packaging has that same similar flair to that. Does Anybody Knows another quality one just like that. It's like some further kind of DJ drama mixtape soul to kind of get here with like some frenetic kind of paranoia about it and outing slog. I definitely feel like it's like some workaday hazes. So it's just within the pitch as far as saying the aspect of just like some city push as far as that particular pair kind of goes, vehicle centric type stuff, just within the aspect, this typical kind of outing, just makeshift drag as far as those pitches can happen with it. Just good type tone for some of that. There's some ones on here. I do like some of this city biting this. This is kind of an NY type product, and I like the concept of it because it has like that commercial kind of ringtone-esque snap about it. This was something that feels like the lyricism, because Fat Joe does have some lyricism on here. It's just within the pitch of kind of meeting it halfway. It's kind of similar to like what Jay-Z said, that he used to rhyme like common sense, but he sold 5 mil. He hasn't been rhyming like common sense. It's the same sort of pitch that Fat Joe kind of does on here. He has the lyricism about it, but now it's kind of has more radio snap out. So it's just been the pitch of getting some of that NY kind of grime that you get from Mobb Deep and folks like that. Just like some good ringtone type appeal. So it's a good type pitch of a fusion of that. And I was talking about also some of the controversies that Fat Joe kind of had around this time in 2005. The song My Fofo is a good quality one within that aspect. It's like a biting response to 50 Cent. I'd have to say here is the diss song towards 50 Cent when 50 Cent dissed Fat Joe and Jadakiss and some of those type folks on the song Piggy Bank for the Massacre. This has a very similar jittery snarl to Piggy Bank. I would definitely feel like here is some city evening kind of grime. I definitely would have to say in Basic Dredge kind of get within those concepts. Just a good cruise around for some of that type fare. Just kind of more in like a rotten mood kind of a day. Just would have to say for just kind of feeling kind of foul within those particular aspects. Just a good type concept to kind of have for some of that type fare and like mixed day or just more makeshift type sense. It's kind of the standard slag of like city push as far as those pitch kind of having just good type flair. Just some of those type songs that 50 Cent was kind of doing on the Massacre. Some of those ones like I forget the name of them, but like a Baltimore Love Thing. Some of those type pitches. Not so much like a romantic type song, obviously, but it's just within the pitch. It is like that standard kind of New York kind of taxi cab kind of slag and kind of taxi cab and just standard city traffic kind of slag as far as those first can have in this city weaving pitches like this. Also pretty good for snack runs. I'd have to say some good type concepts, just picking up like gas station run type stuff, getting like checks mixed, some of those type fares, like I've said, some of those type pitches. Good type tone for that. So Hot's an excellent type one. Now this switches up the tone. There's some ones on here that do have like some Miami Fried typeness kind of get, and So Hot's definitely one of those. It says R. Kelly on the hook. It's like a woozy and emphatic kind of R&B dance hop kind of get here. Good Summer Fried kind of evening romantic. I'd have to say it's like a good Summer Fried kind of evening romantic smoked kind of get within those aspects. I definitely feel like here just a good dying tune to kind of have within some of those tones. Just a good dying tune to kind of have within some of those aspects. So it's just a good pitch kind of have for some of that. Just the aspect of just like a typical kind of mingles for those aspects kind of having just some good retire for like 7 o'clock p.m. pitches like that. Just some basic kind of, this is like a better aspect to some of the type ones that Fat Joe just has a little bit more suaveness factor about it. This is a little bit more with the romantic fashion and just all net kind of within the pitch behind it, where I definitely, like I do feel like Listen Baby and Hold You Down do have the aspect, but these are just a lot more plushy and just more delicate type ones where it's just a little bit more comfort. And I feel like So so hot, it's just a little bit more comfortable type pitches within it, just a little bit more effortless just within the tone, how it delivers upon just the emphaticness about that, this particular appeal, just some wine and dine typeness, just some kind of evening retires for those pitch can happen with so hot. And it's the same thing with I Can Do You, I'd have to say, is like a woozy kind of pink skies, kind of balmy malaise kind of get here. Definitely some Miami fried kind of cruise around to kind of have within those pitches. Probably something that Rick Ross should have done back in 2006. This is the sort of stuff that Rick Ross did with like Deeper Than Rap, just without like the kind of elegant kind of loftiness about it, just kind of a more typical kind of cruise around, just typical makeshift type fare, just in a more romantic type sense, just some after work shift kind of embellish, good song to surf around to as far as this pitch kind of goes. So it's just the concept of just being in Miami or just warm weather pitches like that, just it's kind of the warm weather kind of city weaving as far as those aspects kind of happen with it. Definitely good for like the concept of just like a typical kind of, it definitely feels like some good Florida type music and pitches like that. Just something where you just would appreciate like typical, something where you'd appreciate like the glitzy side of things in like an evening malaise or just like a relative wind down type phase about it, just within the tones. So some good aspects for that. I think I've covered just about every one on here as far as those aspects. I think the only one left possibly, I think one of the only ones left possibly would just be Everybody Get Up, which this one's like a demonic kind of go ham dance stunt night to kind of get here. Good shrill aspects kind of get within those pitches. Just bust a move, I'd have to say here, just a burly set off motion kind of have within some of those type tones. Just kind of the aspect of just kind of one for more of like a tone set type pitch within some of those type aspects behind it. This definitely has some social bite about it. It's a pretty lit song. The pretty lit song kind of get within those pitches. Just kind of one for like a more kind of fashionable type stunt night, just where like you definitely would kind of be like, okay, I'm gonna really get to flexing. It's just kind of a dance song that has a little bit more burliness, just an aspect, just a little bit more kind of, just a little bit more plotting and just more powerhouse type movements with it as far as those pitches will kind of happen with it. Just kind of one where it'd be a little bit where it's definitely within the dance type fashion, but just a little bit more larger moves, more, yeah, just like I was saying, just more powerhouse type aspects behind it as far as those pitches can happen compared to songs like Rocky Body, which are just a little bit more synthy and so much more some of those type ones, and Get It Poppin', this one's just a little bit more of just like a more go ham type one for just more strengthy type vibes with it. So it's a good type pitch. But I'm trying to think if I haven't talked about any other ones on here. I think that basically about covers it. Oh yeah, I don't think I've talked about Beat Novocaine. I think I was going to talk about this song. This has, like when I was talking about DJ Khaled having a few productions on here, or at least one. This is like a superb kind of DJ Khaled beat. I definitely have to say, just like the 2000s mixtapes cruise around for like Rick Ross or Dre from Cool and Dre, some of those type tones within it, and the song jumps pretty well. So it's just a pitch, something that you probably would have heard Lil Wayne on 2005, 2006, Birdman, some of those type folks, Rick Ross, some of those particular type fares just in the pitch. Dre definitely when he was doing songs like Chevy Riding High, just some good type tones, some good type strength. He kind of cruise around just like a more kind of relief type sense that just got done with work shifts. Some good type embrace to be able to have for some of that type fare. Just maybe not so much pink skies, but just the embellish and just like some Miami fried typeness, just to be able to have for like some glitz just before heading to like some night venues to get the songs like Rocky Body and Get It Poppin' and so much more. Some of those type pitches. That's it's a good type tone. DJ Khaled needs to produce. DJ Khaled definitely should have produced a few more songs on this project. He needs to do more beats because I do like some of the ones he did. I want to say he had a nice one on Me, Myself, and I as well as far as those pitch can have. So it's good type tone. But yeah, I give this album a light 10 out of 10, almost like a 9.75. It's just from the pitch that the aspect that this is pretty concentrated. Fat Joe definitely delivers on these aspects. Just puts in like a very emphatic type album that just covers a lot of bases and nails it pretty damn well. The social score, that's actually kind of a tricky type aspect there. I'd probably say the social score would kind of get maybe like a 9. I'd probably say like the social score would get like a light 10 out of 10 or like a 9.75 just within the pitch behind it. I look after it. It has like the hits on here as far as this pitch can happen. It has a lot of big names. So this particular project has a lot of big names on here. Some good social aspects as far as those pitch can happen. Just some good club glitz. Definitely a lot of good pounders for that relative aspect. Some good frenetic kind of, some excellent kind of frenetic Friday night type fares. Some dance steppers definitely within the pitch behind it. Some good ladies type songs within a relative type pitch. A few good evening cruise arounds. Some good ladies type. A few good cruise arounds as far as this pitch can happen. Just some after work shift type relief and like the glitz of like some Florida glamour and pitches like that, and city glamour as far as this pitch kind of goes. Some good ladies type songs kind of get some good, definitely some satiny type ones on top of that for more tied down type senses, full blown. I just would say some good aspects, some paranoia, some city hop, some makeshift grime, some pitches like that, some good city malaise and dredges. Just a good aspect. I'd probably say yeah, 10 out of 10 would be the thing about it. So that's just kind of the pitch. But in terms of the future, like Fat Joe's supposedly working on something as far as those fairs going to happen. I know he's at least, I knew he put out projects at least up until 2011 with like the Darkness Volume 2, but I think he at least dropped a few projects in like the 2010s. I know he dropped one in 2019 that had an Eminem verse on there. I want to say he dropped like a mixtape or two in like the 2020s, but it's just kind of within the console. We'll have to get to some more of these for us this pitch kind of happen. But this is definitely an inspired Fat Joe here, one of his best to definitely kind of say. This is an aspect that covers a lot of bases, just nails the classic appeal about it, and this is a pretty good staple out of the 2000s, I'd have to say.